The transport ship Harmony dropped out of hyperspace with a deep rumble that shook every bolt in its frame. Through the thick viewing ports, the planet Kepler 442b hung like a blue and green jewel against the starfield. Hyunwoo Kim pressed his face to the cold glass and whistled low. "Look at that, Jimin. Our new home for the next 4 years." His childhood friend Jimin Park squeezed in beside him at the window. Her dark eyes reflected the planet's glow. "It looks almost like Earth, just bigger. And with more aliens trying to kill us in training," Hyunwoo added with a grin. Jimin elbowed him in the ribs. "They are not trying to kill us. The Galactic Defense Academy has the best safety record in known space. That is what they want us to think." The other human recruits crowded around them at the viewing ports. 12 young men and women from Earth, the first of their species to be accepted into the academy. The excitement in their voices mixed with nervous energy as the ship began its final approach. Captain Torres, a weathered woman with gray streaks in her black hair, walked down the corridor between the seats. "Listen up, people. We dock in 20 minutes. Remember your briefings. You represent not just Earth but humanity itself. The other species will be watching everything you do." Hyunwoo raised his hand. "Captain, what if we accidentally do something that offends them? Then you apologize and learn from it. That is why you are here, to learn." She paused at their row. "The Academy has been training soldiers from 17 different species for over 200 years. They know how to handle newcomers." The docking process took another hour. The Harmony shuddered as massive clamps grabbed hold of its hull. Through the speakers, an artificial voice announced their arrival in 3 different languages, none of which the humans recognized. As they filed off the ship, Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. The docking bay stretched out like a cathedral, its ceiling lost in shadows far overhead. Creatures moved through the space that looked like nothing from Earth's wildest imagination. A group of tall, thin beings with blue-tinted skin glided past, on what might have been legs. Their heads were twice the size of human heads, with large black eyes that reflected light like mirrors. One of them turned to stare at the human group, tilting its oversized head to one side. "Did it just scan us with its brain?" whispered Minho, another recruit from Busan. "Probably," Jimin said. "Try to think happy thoughts." Near a cargo loading area, massive rocky creatures moved with surprising grace despite looking like walking boulders. Their skin seemed to be made of actual stone, with veins of metal running through it like circuit boards. One of them lifted a cargo container that must have weighed several tons, handling it like it was made of paper. But the strangest sight was a group of what looked like glowing clouds in the shape of people. They floated a few inches off the ground, their bodies shifting and swirling like colored smoke. When one of them spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "New species arrival. Fascinating. Carbon-based with water content. Very primitive design." Hyunwoo felt his cheeks burn. "Hey, we can hear you, you know." The cloud being drifted closer. "Auditory perception confirmed. Basic communication protocols active. Apologies for accurate observation." Jimin grabbed Hyunwoo's arm before he could respond. A new figure approached them, and this one was clearly in charge. It stood nearly 8 feet tall on powerful legs with green-scaled skin that caught the light like armor. Its head was elongated, almost like a crocodile that had learned to walk upright and wear a uniform. "I am Commander Veltar of the 3rd Training Battalion," the creature said. Its voice was deep and rumbling like distant thunder. "You are the human recruits from Sol 3. "Yes, sir," Jimin said, stepping forward. "Recruit Park Jimin reporting for duty." The commander's golden eyes fixed on her for a long moment. "You will address me as Commander Veltar, not sir. I am not male or female as your species understands such things." It gestured with a clawed hand. "Follow me." Orientation begins immediately. They walked through corridors that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. The ceiling stretched high above their heads, and the doorways could have fit 3 people walking side by side. Everything was made of the same gray metal, smooth and seamless. Other recruits joined their group as they walked. The blue-skinned beings moved with liquid grace, never making a sound. The rock creature's footsteps echoed like hammer blows. The cloud beings simply drifted along, occasionally passing through solid walls when the corridors became too narrow. "This is the primary training facility," Commander Veltar explained as they entered a vast chamber filled with equipment that defied easy description. "Here you will learn to work together despite your biological differences." Hyunwoo raised his hand. "Commander, What kind of biological differences are we talking about? Atmospheric requirements, temperature tolerance, pressure sensitivity, radiation resistance, chemical compatibility. The commander's golden eyes swept over the human group. Your species requires remarkably specific conditions to survive. One of the cloud beings drifted closer. Humans need oxygen-nitrogen mixture at precise ratios. Most inflexible design we have encountered. A rock creature's voice rumbled from somewhere in its chest. They also require constant hydration. Very inefficient. Jimin felt heat rise in her cheeks. We have survived on Earth for thousands of years. I think our design works just fine. Earth, repeated Commander Veltar slowly. Yes, your world. We have reviewed the basic survey data. Interesting that your species developed intelligence despite such challenging conditions. Before anyone could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed in sequence along the walls. An automated voice echoed from hidden speakers. Atmospheric contamination detected. All personnel implement emergency breathing protocols immediately. This is not a drill. The reaction was instant and dramatic. Every non-human recruit immediately reached for breathing apparatus attached to their uniforms. The blue-skinned beings pulled transparent masks over their faces. The rock creatures activated what looked like air recycling units built into their chests. Even the cloud beings condensed themselves into tighter, more contained forms. The humans looked around at each other in confusion. "Where are our breathing masks?" asked Minho. Commander Veltar was already wearing a complex breathing apparatus that covered half his face. His voice came out distorted through the filter. "Your equipment should be standard issue. Check your gear packs." Hyunwoo sniffed the air experimentally. It smelled like rotten eggs. The same sulfur smell from the hot springs he had visited as a child with his family. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small package of graham crackers, a chocolate bar, and a bag of marshmallows. "You know what?" he said to Jimin, completely ignoring the chaos around them. "This smell reminds me of camping. Perfect time for s'mores, don't you think?" The alarm continued to wail. Every alien in the room stared in absolute horror as Hyunwoo calmly opened his chocolate bar and broke off a piece. Jimin started laughing. "You are seriously thinking about food right now? The sulfur smell always makes me hungry. Remember that camping trip we took to Mount Hala?" Commander Veltar's eyes went wide behind his breathing mask. The atmospheric readings on his suit showed lethal levels of hydrogen sulfide, a gas that would kill most known species within minutes, and the humans were not only breathing it without protection. One of them was planning to make dessert. Commander Veltar stood at the front of Emergency Assembly Hall 7, his golden eyes fixed on the 12 human recruits sitting in the front row. Behind them, nearly 300 alien cadets from 17 different species filled the massive chamber. The air itself seemed tense with disbelief and fear. "Yesterday's atmospheric contamination incident has raised serious questions," the commander began, his voice carrying easily through the hall's acoustic systems. "Questions that require immediate answers." Hyunwoo shifted in his seat and glanced at Jimin. She looked as confused as he felt. Around them, alien cadets whispered in languages that sounded like everything from musical chimes to grinding stone. Dr. Kaylin, our chief xenobiologist, will present her findings regarding the human response to yesterday's emergency. A creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a butterfly stepped forward. Her forearms moved independently as she activated a holographic display that filled the air above the assembled cadets. Dr. Kaylin's compound eyes reflected the light from dozens of different angles. "What we witnessed yesterday should have been impossible," she began, her voice a series of clicks and whistles that the translation system converted to standard galactic. Hydrogen sulfide concentrations reached 400 parts per million. For reference, 50 parts per million causes respiratory paralysis in most species. 100 parts per million causes immediate death. The hologram showed a three-dimensional model of the training facility, with red zones indicating where the gas had been detected. Nearly the entire space glowed bright crimson. Every species represented in this academy requires emergency breathing apparatus when concentrations exceed 10 parts per million. Dr. Kaylin continued. The ethereal gas beings, our most chemically resistant cadets, begin to dissolve at 50 parts per million. Cadet Zixara, one of the cloud-like beings, shimmered with what might have been embarrassment. The experience was most unpleasant. We required full condensation protocols to survive. Dr. Kalin manipulated the hologram to show atmospheric readings from the previous day. The humans not only survived exposure to lethal concentrations of hydrogen sulfide, they showed no signs of distress whatsoever. Hyunwoo raised his hand. Dr. Kalin, I'm sorry, but I don't understand what the big deal is. It just smelled like hot springs. We have those all over Earth. The hall fell completely silent. Dr. Kalin's compound eyes seemed to focus entirely on him. Hot springs, she repeated slowly. Yes, natural pools of heated water that smell like sulfur. People visit them for relaxation. My grandmother goes to one every weekend for her arthritis. Jimin nodded in agreement. There's a really nice one near Seoul that my family visits during holidays. The sulfur smell is supposed to be good for your skin. Dr. Kalin's forearms began moving frantically over her control interface. New data filled the holographic display. Computer display planetary classification for Sol 3, locally known as Earth. The hologram shifted to show a blue and green planet rotating slowly. Text appeared beside it in the common galactic script. Sol 3. Planet classification, Class 12 Death World. A collective gasp rose from the alien cadets. Several of the more delicate species immediately activated their personal protection fields. Commander Veltar leaned forward in his chair. Dr. Kalin, please explain planetary classification system for our human recruits. The xenobiologist's voice took on the tone of someone explaining something that should be obvious. Class 1 worlds are garden worlds. Perfect conditions, no natural hazards, ideal for colonization. Class 2 through 5 worlds require minimal terraforming. Class 6 through 9 worlds need significant environmental modification to support most life forms. She paused, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic Earth. Class 10 worlds are considered barely habitable. Class 11 worlds are designated as hazardous. Class 12 worlds are death worlds. They are assumed to be incapable of supporting intelligent life. Minho, one of the other human recruits, raised his hand. Wait, you're saying Earth is considered uninhabitable? Not uninhabitable, Dr. Kalin corrected. Uninhabitable by any sane species. Your planet is a nightmare of environmental hazards. The hologram zoomed in on different regions of Earth. Atmospheric composition includes highly reactive oxygen that causes cellular damage over time. Surface temperatures that vary by over 100 degrees. Massive storms that generate electromagnetic discharges powerful enough to kill most beings instantly. Seismic activity that regularly destroys large areas. Radiation from your star that causes genetic damage. More images appeared. Volcanic activity that fills the atmosphere with toxic gases. Frozen regions where temperatures drop below the freezing point of most biological fluids. Ocean depths with pressure that would crush the bodies of every species in this room. Hyunwoo found himself getting defensive. Those aren't that bad. You just have to dress appropriately and pay attention to weather reports. Weather reports, Dr. Kalin repeated, as if the words themselves were incomprehensible. The hologram shifted again, showing microscopic images. Your planet is also home to biological organisms specifically designed to kill other life forms. Bacteria that produce toxins, plants that inject poison through physical contact, animals that have evolved nothing but methods to hunt and consume other creatures. Jimin frowned. You mean like tigers and bears? They're not that dangerous if you leave them alone. Tigers, Dr. Kalin said slowly, are quadrupedal predators weighing over 200 kilograms, equipped with retractable claws and teeth designed to pierce flesh and crush bone. You consider them not dangerous. Well, I mean, you don't want to pet one or anything? A rock creature cadet named Torgan spoke up, his voice like grinding granite. On our homeworld, the most dangerous predator weighs 15 kilograms and feeds primarily on mineral deposits. We built our entire civilization around avoiding it. Hyunwoo turned around to look at the massive stone being. How big are you? Like 2 meters tall and probably weighing a ton? Yes. And you're afraid of something that weighs 15 kilograms? It has sharp edges. The human recruits looked at each other in amazement. Jimin stood up and addressed the room. Wait, let me get this straight. You're all afraid of our planet because it has weather and animals and some volcanic activity. Dr. Kalin manipulated her controls again. Computer, display human dietary preferences. A new section of the hologram appeared showing various Earth foods. Humans regularly consume plant matter that produces capsaicin, a chemical compound designed by the plant as a defense mechanism to prevent consumption. This chemical causes pain receptors to activate, simulating the sensation of burning. Humans call this spicy food and consider it enjoyable. Several alien cadets made sounds of distress. Furthermore, humans regularly consume ethanol, a cellular toxin, for recreational purposes. They also consume plants that produce caffeine, a stimulant that would cause heart failure in most species. Many human beverages contain acid strong enough to dissolve organic matter. Hyunwoo raised his hand again. Are you talking about coffee and soda? Yes. Those aren't dangerous. I drink coffee every morning. Commander Veltar stood up slowly. His voice carried a tone of dawning realization. Dr. K-Lin, in your professional opinion, how did humans develop intelligence while living on a Class 12 death world? The xenobiologist's compound eyes seemed to look at each human individually. They didn't develop intelligence despite their hostile environment, Commander. They developed intelligence because of it. Everything on their planet is trying to kill them, so they had to become smart enough to survive it all. The hall remained silent for several long moments. Finally, Hyunwoo spoke up. So, does this mean we're going to have an easy time with Academy training? Training instructor Kicksmall had been running Academy stress tests for 47 years. The tall, blue-skinned Altarian prided himself on his ability to push cadets to their limits without actually killing them. His perfect safety record was legendary throughout the Academy. That record was about to be destroyed by 12 humans who seemed to treat deadly situations like casual entertainment. Today we begin the vacuum exposure simulation, Instructor Kicksmall announced to the mixed group of cadets gathered in Laboratory Complex 5. This exercise will test your ability to function in the vacuum of space for exactly 20 minutes. The laboratory contained a massive chamber with transparent walls, surrounded by monitoring equipment that tracked everything from heart rate to brain activity. Cadets would enter the chamber in full environmental suits, then experience a controlled simulation of vacuum exposure. The psychological stress of this exercise is considerable, Chixamol continued, his large black eyes scanning the group. Many cadets experience panic reactions. Some require immediate extraction. This is normal and expected. Zixara, one of the cloud-being cadets, shimmered nervously. Instructor, how many cadets typically complete the full 20 minutes? Approximately 30% on their first attempt. The alien cadets began checking their environmental suits with obvious anxiety. The massive stone-being Torgan was already sealing himself into a suit that looked more like a small building than protective clothing. Hyunwoo raised his hand. Instructor Kicksmall, where are our environmental suits? The instructor's head tilted to one side, a gesture that indicated confusion among his species. Your suits should have been issued with your standard equipment. Check your lockers. Jimin and Hyunwoo exchanged glances. We didn't receive any environmental suits, sir. Instructor Kicksmall moved to his computer terminal and began typing rapidly. His blue skin shifted to a pale green color, which the humans had learned meant he was experiencing stress. There appears to have been an error in equipment distribution. The Academy Quartermaster's office shows that human environmental suits were ordered but never delivered. Can we borrow some from storage? Jimin asked. Impossible. Each suit must be precisely calibrated for the specific biology and body measurements of the wearer. A poorly fitted suit in vacuum conditions would be fatal. The other cadets began to murmur among themselves. Several of them suggested that the humans should skip this exercise and wait for proper equipment. Hyunwoo looked at the vacuum chamber and shrugged. How long did you say? 20 minutes? Yes, but you cannot possibly attempt this exercise without protection. The vacuum of space will kill you in less than 90 seconds. Actually, Jimin said thoughtfully, I remember reading that humans can survive in vacuum for a couple of minutes if they don't panic. Something about holding your breath being bad, but exhaling and staying calm works. Instructor Kicksmall's skin shifted to a deeper shade of green. That is theoretical information only. No one has ever tested such claims with actual humans. Well, there's a first time for everything, Hyunwoo said, walking toward the chamber entrance. Recruit Kim, I absolutely forbid this course of action. Return to your position immediately. Hyunwoo paused and looked back at the instructor. Sir, with respect, we came here to train for space operations. If we can't handle a little vacuum, we don't belong in the academy. Before Instructor Kicksmall could respond, Both humans had entered the chamber. The transparent walls sealed automatically, and the vacuum simulation began. The monitoring equipment immediately started showing readings that made no sense. As the atmosphere was pumped from the chamber, the human vital signs remained stable. Their heart rates increased slightly, but stayed within normal ranges. "This is impossible," Kixmol whispered, watching his instruments. Inside the chamber, Hyunwoo had exhaled completely as the air disappeared, just as Jimin had suggested. The sensation was strange but not painful. His skin felt tight, and his saliva began to boil on his tongue, but he remained conscious and alert. Jimin was using the time to organize the gear in her pack, laying out her equipment in neat rows on the chamber floor. She moved calmly and efficiently, as if she were cleaning her room back home rather than experiencing conditions that should have killed her. The alien cadets pressed against the observation windows in amazement and horror. Even with their advanced environmental suits, they could feel their own stress levels rising, just from watching. 15 minutes remaining, the computer announced. Hyunwoo had discovered that he could move around the chamber quite easily. Without air resistance, even small movements sent him gliding across the space. He seemed to be enjoying himself, pushing off walls and spinning slowly in the vacuum. 10 minutes remaining. Jimin had finished organizing her gear and was now doing stretching exercises. She moved through a series of yoga poses that she had learned in school, apparently finding the weightless environment helpful for maintaining balance. Instructor Kixmol was frantically checking and rechecking his equipment. "The readings must be wrong. The instruments are malfunctioning." 5 minutes remaining. By this point, several alien cadets had activated their emergency medical sensors, convinced they were about to witness 2 deaths. The rock-being Torgun was muttering prayers in his native language, which sounded like an earthquake having an argument with itself. 1 minute remaining. Hyunwoo had spent the last few minutes experimenting with how fast he could move around the chamber by pushing off the walls. He had discovered that he could build up considerable speed, and was now racing around the perimeter like he was swimming laps in a pool. Exercise complete. Repressurization beginning. As atmosphere flowed back into the chamber, both humans remained standing and alert. When the doors opened, they walked out as casually as if they had been taking a brief nap. "That was actually pretty relaxing," Jimin said. "No distractions, no noise. I got a lot of thinking done." Instructor Kixmol stared at them with his large black eyes. "You were in hard vacuum for 20 minutes. You should be dead." "We held our breath a lot longer than that when we were kids, diving for shells at the beach," Hyunwoo replied. "This was easier because we didn't have to worry about swimming back to the surface." The next test was radiation resistance, conducted in Laboratory Complex 3. Dr. Ventar, an elderly crystalline being who looked like a walking chandelier, explained the procedure to the assembled cadets. "You will be exposed to increasing levels of cosmic radiation, similar to what you might encounter during extended space travel. The exercise ends when your personal dosimeters reach the maximum safe exposure level for your species." The alien cadets entered individual shielded booths equipped with the finest radiation protection technology in the galaxy. Their dosimeters were calibrated to sound alarms well before dangerous levels were reached. The humans' dosimeters had to be recalibrated 3 times. "This cannot be correct," Dr. Ventar muttered, examining his readouts. "According to these instruments, the humans have absorbed enough radiation to kill most species 10 times over, yet they show no symptoms of radiation poisoning." Inside their booth, Hyunwoo was reading a book he had brought from Earth. Jimin was taking a nap, curled up in the corner like she was sleeping in her own bed. "Perhaps their dosimeters are defective," suggested Cadet Mordak, a slug-like being whose booth was already showing amber warning lights. Dr. Ventar replaced the human dosimeters with backup equipment. The readings remained the same. "Impossible," he whispered. The exercise was finally terminated when the radiation levels reached the point where they would have damaged the laboratory equipment. The humans emerged from their booth looking refreshed and alert. "That was nice," Jimin said, stretching as she walked out. "The warmth helped me sleep better." "Warmth?" Dr. Ventar asked faintly. "From the radiation. It felt like lying in the sun at the beach." Dr. Ventar's crystalline body began to flicker with stress patterns. You felt the gamma radiation as warmth? Sure. Why, what's it supposed to feel like? The final test of the week was high-pressure deep-sea simulation. The exercise took place in a massive tank that simulated the crushing depths of an ocean world, complete with the psychological pressure of darkness, cold, and isolation. Cadets were submerged in individual pressure chambers that slowly increased the external pressure, while monitoring their stress responses. Most cadets began showing signs of panic within the first few minutes. The alien cadets' chambers were equipped with emergency extraction systems, communication links, and constant medical monitoring. Their instructors watched carefully for any signs of psychological breakdown. The humans' chamber was much simpler, since their equipment requests had been delayed again due to bureaucratic confusion. 20 minutes into the exercise, Instructor Helvik noticed something odd about the human readouts. Computer, verify biosign patterns for human cadets Park and Kim. Human cadets are showing decreased heart rate, lowered brain activity, and regular respiratory patterns consistent with sleep state. Instructor Helvik activated the chamber's internal camera. On the screen, Jimin was indeed asleep, floating peacefully in the dark water like she was taking a bath at home. When the exercise ended and the humans were extracted, Jimin yawned and rubbed her eyes. Sorry, did I miss anything important? The water pressure reminded me of the deep end at our local swimming pool. Very relaxing. Instructor Helvik stared at her in disbelief. You found the crushing pressure of the deep ocean relaxing? Well, it was quieter than Seoul during rush hour. No traffic noise, no people shouting, no construction equipment. Just peaceful silence and gentle pressure. I haven't slept that well since I left Earth. That evening, all three instructors met with Commander Veltar in his office. Commander, Instructor Kicksmall began, we have a problem. The standard training exercises are not working on the humans. Define not working. They are not being stressed by situations that cause panic in every other species. They treat lethal conditions as minor inconveniences. They find relaxing what should terrify them. Commander Veltar leaned back in his chair. Recommendations? Dr. Ventar's crystalline body flickered thoughtfully. We need to completely redesign our testing protocols. Nothing in our current curriculum challenges them. Or, Instructor Helvik added quietly, we need to start thinking about what kind of soldiers they might become if nothing we consider dangerous actually bothers them. Commander Veltar stood in the Academy's main tactical briefing room, studying the holographic display of Mining Station Delta 7. The station hung in space like a twisted metal skeleton, its hull breached in dozens of places. Emergency lights flickered weakly in the darkness. 3 weeks ago, Mining Station Delta 7 sent a distress signal, he announced to the assembled cadets. The station was overrun by hive creatures. All personnel are presumed dead. The holographic display zoomed in on the station's interior. Corridors that should have been filled with light and activity were now dark tunnels. Strange organic growths covered the walls like cancer. This will be your first joint training mission, Commander Veltar continued. Your objective is to enter the station, eliminate the hive creatures, and secure the facility for recovery teams. Cadet Zixara, the cloud being, shimmered nervously. Commander, what is the current environmental status of the station? Life support systems have failed completely. Internal atmosphere is 90% methane with traces of hydrogen sulfide and ammonia. Temperature has dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. The combination is lethal to most known life forms. The alien cadets immediately began checking their environmental suits and life support systems. The equipment they required was extensive. Full atmospheric recycling, heated clothing, radiation shielding, and emergency backup systems for every vital function. Hyun Woo raised his hand. Commander, how cold did you say it was? -40 degrees Celsius. Hyun Woo looked at Jimin and shrugged. That's not too bad. Remember that winter camping trip we took to Mount Sorak? The one where it got down to -30 and you complained the whole time that it wasn't cold enough to be interesting? That's the one. Commander Veltar's golden eyes fixed on them. Recruits, you will require full environmental protection for this mission. The methane atmosphere alone will kill you within minutes. Actually, Jimin said, reaching into her pack, we brought our own breathing equipment. She held up a simple filter mask of the type used in Seoul during heavy pollution days. These should handle the methane just fine. Those masks are designed for atmospheric particulates, not toxic gas replacement. They work for the subway system during chemical spills. How much worse can space be? Dr. Kalin, who had been observing the briefing, stepped forward. Commander, I recommend we monitor this mission very carefully. The human tolerance for environmental extremes continues to exceed our projections. The journey to mining station Delta 7 took 6 hours aboard the Academy training ship Perseverance. During the flight, the alien cadets spent their time checking and rechecking their environmental suits, running diagnostics on their life support systems, and reviewing emergency procedures. The humans spent their time playing card games and sharing snacks they had brought from Earth. Are you not concerned about the upcoming mission? Asked Torgan, the massive rock being. His voice rumbled with worry despite his imposing appearance. Should we be? Hyunwoo replied, dealing another hand of cards. It sounds like a standard search and clear operation. Go in, eliminate hostiles, secure the area. Basic infantry work. Basic infantry work, Torgan repeated slowly. In an environment that will kill most beings instantly. Jimin looked up from her cards. Torgan, what's the most dangerous thing on your homeworld? Sharp-edged mineral predators that feed on crystalline structures. They are 15 kilograms of pure terror. 15 kilograms. On Earth, house cats weigh 4 kilograms and they hunt for fun. We keep them as pets and let them sleep in our beds. Torgan's rocky features somehow managed to convey bewilderment. Your domestic companions are apex predators? Well, they think they are. It's pretty cute, actually. When they reached mining station Delta 7, the docking procedure required careful coordination. The station's automated systems were offline, forcing the Perseverance to dock manually with the damaged structure. Atmospheric readings confirm previous reports, announced the ship's AI. Internal environment is hostile to most organic life. All personnel must use appropriate protective measures. The alien cadets began the lengthy process of sealing themselves into their environmental suits. Each suit was a marvel of engineering, capable of keeping its wearer alive in the vacuum of space or the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres. Hyunwoo and Jimin put on light jackets and their simple filter masks. That's your entire protective equipment? Asked Cadet Mordok, the slug-like being whose environmental suit looked like a small spacecraft. Oh, we also brought flashlights, Jimin said, pulling a small electric torch from her pocket. It's going to be pretty dark in there. Commander Veltar watched from the bridge as the mixed team prepared to board the station. His tactical computer was running constant projections, trying to predict how the humans would perform in the hostile environment. Every projection came back with the same result. Insufficient data. The docking bay of mining station Delta 7 was a scene from a nightmare. Organic growths covered every surface, pulsing with a sickly bioluminescent glow. The air was thick with methane, creating a visible fog that swirled around their feet. The alien cadets moved slowly and carefully, their bulky environmental suits making them clumsy despite their advanced design. Their helmet lights cut through the methane fog, but the strange organic growth seemed to absorb much of the illumination. Hyunwoo sniffed experimentally through his filter mask. You know, this actually smells better than my grandmother's kimchi fermentation room. I was thinking more like the chemistry lab back at school, Jimin replied. Remember when Professor Lee was working on that sulfur compound project? They moved through the station's corridors with casual confidence while their alien teammates struggled with the hostile environment. The methane fog that limited visibility for the others was just a minor annoyance to the humans. 10 minutes into the mission, disaster struck. Emergency alert, came Cadet Zixara's voice over the communication system. Environmental suit malfunction. Life support systems failing. The cloud being's form was becoming unstable, flickering between solid and gaseous states as his protective equipment failed to maintain proper atmospheric conditions. All teams returned to docking bay immediately. Commander Veltar ordered from the ship. Mission abort! Wait, Hyunwoo said, removing his filter mask entirely. Zixara, are you okay? Can you make it back to the ship? The alien cadet stared in horror as the human breathed the station's toxic atmosphere directly. Recruit Kim, replace your breathing protection immediately, came the commander's urgent voice. It's okay, sir. The methane actually isn't that bad. Smells like swamp gas. We used to dare each other to swim in the rice paddies back home during monsoon season. This is much cleaner. Hyunwoo moved to assist Zixara, whose failing equipment was causing him to lose cohesion. Without the bulk of an environmental suit, the human could move quickly and efficiently through the station's narrow, damaged corridors. How is this possible? Cadet Mordok asked, his voice distorted through his suit's communication system. We'll worry about that later, Jimin said, also removing her mask. Right now, we have a mission to complete. What should have been a careful, methodical advance through hostile territory became something entirely different. The humans moved through the station like they were walking through their own neighborhood, unhindered by environmental suits or breathing equipment. Within an hour, they had cleared 3 levels of hive creatures that the alien cadets would have taken days to reach. The hive creatures, adapted to the station's toxic environment, had no defense against enemies who could operate freely in conditions that should have been lethal. This is unprecedented, Dr. Kalin observed from the ship's monitoring station. The humans are not just surviving in the hostile environment, they are thriving in it. Commander Veltar watched the tactical display as the human recruits systematically cleared the station. Dr. Kalin, in your professional opinion, what are the implications of this capability? Commander, we may need to completely rethink our understanding of what environments are hostile. What we consider uninhabitable, they consider mildly unpleasant. What we consider lethal, they consider inconvenient. On the tactical display, Hyunwoo and Jimin had reached the station's central core, where the largest concentration of hive creatures had established their nest. The aliens watched as the 2 humans engaged in combat without any of the protective equipment that would normally be required. Movement patterns suggest the hive creatures cannot properly track the humans, Dr. Kalin noted. Their thermal signatures are so different from standard galactic biology that the creatures' sensory organs are not calibrated to detect them. Jimin had discovered that her body heat signature was so unusual compared to other galactic species that she was effectively invisible to the hive creatures' thermal sensors. What should have been a difficult stealth mission became a casual walk through enemy territory. The emergency session of the Galactic Military Council had been called at 0300 hours Galactic Standard Time. Representatives from 12 species sat around the massive holographic display table, their faces grim with worry. At the center of the table, a 3-dimensional image of planet Mortis rotated slowly, its surface glowing with volcanic activity. Admiral Kethran, a towering insectoid with 4 arms and compound eyes, gestured toward the planet with obvious distress. Gentlemen, ladies, and honored beings, we face an unprecedented crisis. Intelligence confirms that the hegemony forces have established a military stronghold on planet Mortis. A collective shudder ran through the assembled representatives. General Voxtar, whose crystalline body flickered with anxiety patterns, spoke first. Admiral, surely this is impossible. No one can survive on Mortis. It is the most hostile world in known space. That is precisely what makes it so dangerous, Admiral Kethran replied. The hegemony has weaponized the planet's natural defenses. Their base is completely impregnable because no attacking force can survive the journey to reach it. The holographic display zoomed in on Mortis, revealing a hellscape that defied imagination. Massive volcanic eruptions sent pillars of lava thousands of meters into the sky. The atmosphere was a thick soup of sulfuric acid that would dissolve most materials within minutes. Surface temperatures reached levels that could melt starship hulls. Current atmospheric readings show sulfuric acid concentrations at 97%, Dr. Yelnova reported, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy. Surface temperature averages 800 degrees Celsius. Radiation levels are 40,000 times the lethal dose for most organic life. What kind of equipment would we need for an assault? Asked General Mordane, a massive bear-like creature whose fur was already standing on end with stress. Dr. Yelnova consulted her data pad. Each soldier would require a full environmental suit with independent life support, rated for extreme acid resistance and thermal protection. The suits alone would cost more than a small starship. Even with perfect equipment, maximum operational time would be 30 minutes before the acid dissolves the suit seals. 30 minutes. Admiral Kethran repeated grimly. Against a fortified position that our intelligence suggests houses over 10,000 enemy troops. The math was simple and devastating. It would take a massive fleet, thousands of the most advanced environmental suits in existence, and careful coordination of multiple assault waves. The casualties would be enormous and success was far from guaranteed. There is another problem, General Voxtar added, his crystalline form dimming with pessimism. The hegemony chose Mortis specifically because they know we cannot attack them there. If we attempt an assault and fail, it will demonstrate to the entire galaxy that there are places where the galactic defense forces cannot reach. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If word spread that there were planets where military forces could hide with complete impunity, every rebel group and criminal organization in the galaxy would race to establish bases on similar death worlds. At the far end of the table, Commander Veltar sat quietly, his golden eyes fixed on the rotating image of Mortis. He had been invited to this emergency session as an observer, representing the Academy's training programs. For the past hour, he had listened to the military leaders describe the impossible nature of the mission. But as he studied the planet's specifications, a different perspective began to form in his mind. "Admiral Kethran," he said finally, breaking into the grim discussion, "may I ask what you consider to be the primary obstacles to this mission?" The Admiral's compound eyes focused on him with surprise. "Commander, I thought that would be obvious. The environment itself is the obstacle. No known species can survive on Mortis without massive technological support." "No known species," Commander Veltar repeated thoughtfully. "Commander, do you have a suggestion?" General Mordain asked, hope creeping into his voice. Commander Veltar manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up a new set of data alongside the image of Mortis. "Colleagues, I would like you to consider the planetary specifications for Sol 3, locally known as Earth." The new data appeared beside the Mortis readings. Earth looked almost pleasant by comparison, but Commander Veltar highlighted specific aspects of its environment. Earth experiences regular volcanic activity, with surface temperatures in some regions exceeding 600 degrees Celsius. The planet's atmosphere contains reactive oxygen that causes cellular damage over time. Acid rain occurs naturally in many regions. The dominant species has evolved to not only survive these conditions, but to find them comfortable. Dr. Yelnova's tentacles stopped writhing as she studied the comparison. "Commander, are you suggesting what I think you are suggesting? The Academy currently has 12 human recruits in training. Based on recent mission results, they have demonstrated the ability to operate in environments that would be lethal to other species without requiring any specialized equipment." A stunned silence fell over the council chamber. General Voxtar was the first to speak. "Commander, Mortis is not simply hostile. It is apocalyptic. The acid concentration alone would dissolve organic matter within minutes. General, with respect, humans regularly swim in natural hot springs that contain sulfuric acid. They consider it therapeutic." Admiral Kethran leaned forward, his forearms gesturing with agitation. "The radiation levels would cause immediate cellular breakdown in any known organic life form. Admiral, human recruits recently completed radiation exposure training that exceeded safe limits for our equipment. They reported that the experience was relaxing. The temperature would boil their blood," Dr. Yelnova protested. "Doctor, humans evolved near volcanic activity. Many of their cities are built directly on top of active volcano systems. They vacation in such areas for pleasure." The council members looked at each other with expressions of growing amazement and horror. "Commander Veltar," Admiral Kethran said slowly, "are you seriously proposing that we send human recruits to assault the most dangerous planet in known space?" "Admiral, I am suggesting that what we consider the most dangerous planet in known space might be what humans consider a slightly unpleasant camping trip." General Mordain's fur was now standing completely upright. "This is insane. We cannot send students into a combat situation that our most experienced veterans could not survive. General, they are not typical students. Our recent training exercises have demonstrated that standard military protocols do not apply to humans. They operate by completely different rules." Commander Veltar brought up footage from the mining station Delta 7 mission. The assembled officers watched as the human recruits moved casually through an environment that had required extensive protective equipment for other species. As you can see, they completed this mission in 4 hours without any specialized equipment. Military projections estimated it would require a full battalion working for weeks. Dr. Yelnova studied her instruments carefully. "Commander, even assuming humans could survive Mortis, which seems impossible, how would such a small force assault a position defended by 10,000 enemy troops?" "Doctor, that assumes the enemy is prepared for attackers who do not require life support. move faster than expected, and are invisible to most sensor systems because their biology is so different from galactic norms. Admiral Kethran stood and walked to the holographic display. He studied the image of Mortis for several long minutes while the other council members waited in tense silence. Commander, this proposal is either brilliant or completely suicidal, possibly both. Admiral, may I suggest that we ask the humans themselves? Their perspective on this situation might be different from ours. Very well, bring them in. 20 minutes later, Hyunwoo and Jimin entered the council chamber, still wearing their academy training uniforms. They looked around at the assembled military leadership with curiosity, rather than nervousness. Commander Veltar gestured toward the holographic display. Recruits, we have a tactical situation that requires evaluation. Please examine these planetary specifications and give us your assessment. The two humans studied the rotating image of Mortis and its environmental data. They looked at each other, then back at the display. Sir, Hyunwoo said finally, this looks like Venus, but with more sulfur. Is that a problem? Admiral Kethran asked. Well, it's not ideal, Jimin replied. The acid rain might be annoying, and we would probably need to bring extra water since we can't drink what's there. But it's not too different from some of the industrial areas back home. The temperature readings show 800 degrees Celsius, Dr. Yelnova said faintly. That's pretty hot, Hyunwoo agreed. We would need good boots and maybe some heat-resistant clothing. My uncle worked in steel mills that got up to similar temperatures. He said the trick is to stay hydrated and take breaks in the shade. General Mordain stared at them. The radiation levels would kill most beings instantly. Jimin shrugged. We get a lot of radiation on Earth, too. Cosmic rays, solar radiation, radioactive elements in the ground. You just have to be sensible about exposure time. So you believe this mission is possible? Admiral Kethran asked. Sure, Hyunwoo said. I mean, it won't be comfortable, but it's doable. How long would we need to be down there? Intelligence suggests the mission would require 12 to 18 hours to complete. That should be fine. We did longer camping trips in worse weather when we were kids. The council chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of the holographic generators. Every military leader in the room was staring at two young humans who had just described the most hostile environment in known space as a minor inconvenience. Commander Veltar finally broke the silence. Admiral, I believe we have found our solution. The transport ship Phoenix dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Mortis system. Through the reinforced viewing ports, planet Mortis hung like a glowing coal against the darkness of space. Its surface pulsed with volcanic activity, sending streams of lava high into the sulfuric atmosphere. Captain Reeves, the Phoenix's human commanding officer, studied the tactical displays with professional interest. Atmospheric entry in 30 minutes. Final equipment check. Hyunwoo and Jimin sat in the ship's modest preparation bay, going through their gear one last time. Their equipment looked almost primitive compared to what other species would require for such a mission. Heat-resistant boots, acid-proof jackets, breathing filters, and basic climbing gear. Remember, Jimin said, checking her water supply, stay hydrated and try not to breathe too much of the sulfur. It might give us headaches. Right. And if the ground gets too hot, we can rest on the volcanic rock formations. They should be cooler than the lava flows. In the ship's observation deck, representatives from 12 different galactic species watched the final preparations with a mixture of amazement and horror. Dr. Kaylin pressed her compound eyes against the viewing screen, recording every detail for her research. This is either the most brilliant military operation in galactic history or the most tragic waste of young life, she murmured. Commander Veltar stood beside her, his golden eyes fixed on the two human recruits. Doctor, based on everything we have observed, I believe it is the former. The Phoenix entered Mortis's atmosphere with careful precision. The ship's sensors screamed warnings about the hostile environment. Acid concentrations that would dissolve most hulls, temperatures that would melt standard metals, radiation levels that would kill most crews within hours. Approaching drop zone, Captain Reeves announced. Weather report indicates light acid rain with volcanic ash. Visibility is poor due to sulfur fog. Surface temperature is holding steady at 812 degrees Celsius. Hyunwoo looked at Jimin and shrugged. Could be worse. At least it's not snowing. The drop pod was a simple design, little more than a heat shield with basic controls. As it separated from the Phoenix and began its descent, the alien observers held their breath. Most drop pods for such conditions would require massive heat shields, complex life support systems, and extensive protective measures. The human pod looked like something built in a garage. "Pod touchdown confirmed," came Captain Reeves's voice over the communication system. "Human team is on the surface." The landscape of Mortis was a vision from the deepest nightmares of most galactic species. Rivers of molten lava carved glowing paths through fields of black volcanic rock. The air itself was visible, thick with sulfuric acid that fell like rain. Geysers of superheated steam erupted from cracks in the ground with regular frequency. Hyunwoo stepped out of the pod and took a deep breath through his filter mask. The sulfur smell was strong but not unpleasant. It reminded him of the hot springs near his childhood home. "Not too bad," he said to Jimin as she joined him. "The ground is pretty solid. Good traction." They began moving toward the enemy stronghold, following GPS coordinates that had been provided by galactic intelligence. The fortress was built into the side of an active volcano, its black metal walls designed to blend with the natural rock formations. What should have been an impossible approach became a casual hike. The humans moved steadily across terrain that would have been lethal to any other species, occasionally pausing to rest in the shade of volcanic outcroppings or to drink water from their supplies. "Phoenix Control. This is ground team," Jimin reported through her communicator. "We are 2 kilometers from the target. Terrain is manageable. Weather conditions are stable." "Stable," Dr. Kalin repeated faintly from the ship's observation deck. "They consider apocalyptic volcanic conditions stable." The approach to the fortress revealed something unexpected. Instead of the massive military installation that intelligence reports had described, the structure looked more like a refugee camp. Makeshift shelters clustered around the main building. Beings in environmental suits moved between the structures with the careful efficiency of people trying to survive, rather than soldiers preparing for war. "Phoenix Control. We have visual on the target," Hyunwoo reported. "Something's not right here. This doesn't look like a military base." Through their communicators, they could hear the discussion aboard the Phoenix as military officers tried to make sense of the situation. "Ground team. Proceed with caution." Commander Veltar's voice came through clearly. "Investigate and report." As they moved closer to the settlement, they could see that the beings inside were not soldiers at all. They were families. Children played in areas that had been cleared of the worst volcanic debris, while adults worked to maintain their environmental equipment and expand their shelters. "These aren't enemy troops," Jimin said quietly. "These are refugees." The first contact came when a group of the settlement's guards spotted the approaching humans. The guards wore environmental suits that looked cobbled together from salvaged parts, and they moved with the desperation of people who had nowhere left to run. "Stop there," came a voice through a suit's external speaker. The translator made it sound metallic and distorted. "Who are you? How did you get here?" Hyunwoo raised his hands to show he was not carrying weapons. "We're from the Galactic Defense Academy. We came here because we thought this was a military base." "Military base?" The guard's laughter came through as static. "We are hiding here because no one else can reach this place. It is the only world where we can survive without being hunted." "Hunted by whom?" Jimin asked. "The same forces that destroyed our homeworld. They chase us from system to system. We came here because we thought no one could follow." The guard gestured toward the settlement. "Look around you. This is not a fortress. This is the last refuge of the Kethmori people." Over the next several hours, Hyunwoo and Jimin learned the truth about the Mortis settlement. The Kethmori were survivors of a planet that had been destroyed by an aggressive species known as the hegemony. They had fled from world to world, always being discovered, always being forced to run again. Finally, they had chosen Mortis because its hostile environment made it impossible for their pursuers to reach them. What the galaxy's military saw as an impregnable enemy fortress was actually a desperate attempt by refugees to find somewhere safe to raise their children. "We have been here for 2 years, explained Elder Morthak, the settlement's leader. "We lose people every month to the environment, but it is better than being exterminated by our enemies." "Why didn't you contact the Galactic Council for help?" Jimin asked. "We tried. They said our world was too dangerous to approach. No one was willing to help people trapped on a Class 12 death world." The irony was not lost on either human. The same conditions that made Mortis impossible for most species to reach also made it impossible for help to arrive. "Phoenix Control. Hyunwoo said into his communicator. "We need to speak with command. This situation is not what we expected." The resolution came 12 hours later, after lengthy discussions between the Phoenix, the Academy, and the Galactic Council. A new plan emerged, one that no one had imagined when the mission began. Instead of a military assault, Mortis became the test site for a revolutionary new concept: human environmental specialists. If humans could operate comfortably in conditions that were lethal to other species, they could serve as bridges between the galaxy's civilized worlds and the refuge communities that hit on death worlds. Within 6 months, Jimin had been appointed as the first director of the Galactic Refugee Assistance Program. Her job was to locate and aid communities that had been cut off from galactic civilization by hostile environments. Hyunwoo volunteered for the newly created Death World Colonization Initiative, helping to establish supply routes and communication networks to worlds that had previously been considered unreachable. The final scene of their story took place 1 year later, back on the surface of Mortis. What had once been a desperate refugee camp was now a thriving community. Human engineers had helped the Kethmori build better shelters and more efficient life support systems. Supply ships arrived monthly, bringing food, medicine, and materials that the settlement needed. In the center of the community, a small park had been built around one of the more stable volcanic vents. The geothermal energy powered the settlement systems, and the area provided a gathering place where children could play safely. That evening, as the settlement's day shift ended and the night crew took over, Hyunwoo and Jimin sat beside the volcanic vent with a group of Kethmori children. The humans had brought supplies for s'mores, using the natural heat from the volcanic activity to roast marshmallows. "Tell us again about your homeworld," asked young Kethley, a child whose environmental suit had been decorated with drawings of Earth animals. "Well," Hyunwoo said, carefully turning a marshmallow over the volcanic heat, "Earth has lots of interesting weather. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it snows, and sometimes the ground shakes because the planet is still growing and changing." "Is it scary?" another child asked. Jimin smiled, remembering the first time she had heard that same question from alien cadets at the academy. "Not really. It's home. And home is what you make it, no matter where you are." Above them, the sulfuric clouds parted briefly to reveal stars. Some of those stars had planets where other refugee communities waited for help that they thought would never come. But now, for the first time in galactic history, help was on the way. It would arrive in the form of young humans who found camping trips relaxing, sulfur smells nostalgic, and s'mores delicious no matter what kind of fire was used to cook them. The galaxy had learned something important about the species from the little blue death world in the Sol system. Humans were not just survivors of impossible conditions. They were the people who could make impossible places feel like home for everyone else.